the release of the actual documents is just providing the transparency. What the Oversight Committee has, though, is subpoena jurisdiction, where they can actually subpoena people to come in to actually testify before Congress. And that in itself is what the real power and the real tool is, because there's so much that's not covered in these emails that can only be done through firsthand accounts and through testimony. And that's what the Oversight Committee has the advantage on.
The United States House has just voted overwhelmingly to release all the files on Jeffrey Epstein that were held by the Justice Department. The votes were 427 to 1. The bill will now have to pass a Senate vote before President Donald Trump signs it into law. Here is the moment that the House passed the bill.
On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
There we are, that historic vote. Cory Mills, Republican congressman in Florida, I'm delighted to say, can join us now. Good evening to you, Cory Mills.
Good evening.
Is this a historic moment in your view?
Well, it is. I think that more than just being a historical moment, it's a moment of closure and transparency for many of the victims that for years and years had been forgotten, had been brushed under the rug, or investigations that seemed to stagnate. And let me just first say that our Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and the Department of Justice has done an amazing job. They've really done all they could to not just go ahead and collect all the necessary files, documents, and further investigate, but also look at subpoena and additional things. This was just moving at a pace that the victims and American people felt was too slow and cumbersome. And so by doing this, even without the actual rulings itself, it at least puts the documents out there for people to start understanding the level of just abhorrent and evil and vile behavior by so many who were trafficking women or alleged to have trafficked women. And again, give closure and at least let the victims know that we see you.
The president has changed his opinion several times on this. Some people saying, well, he's dragging his feet for a reason. Now he's changed his position. Has that change of position come a bit too late, do you think? Because there's been criticism, hasn't there, from MAGA loyalists like Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Well, first off, he hasn't changed his position at any point in time. It's the same thing here in the House of Representatives, whereby sometimes you get people who are very eager who want to do a House privilege resolution as opposed to what we normally do, which is to run through regular order in the committees of jurisdiction. What the president was doing was trying to allow the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, which is under his purview, to be able to go ahead and do the necessary investigations. But also, one of the big things the president was most concerned with was the potential re-victimization after the naming of these victims. And so he was being also very sensitive to what they may or may not want, having even met with the victims and such. So he never had a change of position. I would disagree with that and kind of the lineup. I think that it was just a, how do we go about it by allowing the certain areas of jurisdiction to carry out their jobs?
So what happens now? There has been the vote in Congress. The measure now heads to the Senate. Is there commitment to hold a vote there?
I absolutely see where our Republican leader, Senator Thune, will definitely get this to the floor once that's voted on there. And I wouldn't be surprised that, it's going to pass fairly easily. And that'll go to the president's desk to be signed. And we can start getting more transparency, which is what the American people voted for in the last election. Oh,
interesting. You don't think it's possible that senators might make changes that would then require the bill to return to the House?
I really don't see that happening. But then again, this is a democracy. It's a constitutional republic whereby people may want certain things omitted, want certain things protected, want more transparency of certain things, maybe in some regards. I'm not sure what that would be. But there's always the chance that the Senate will make some type of a change and send it back to the House. But the House, just as we did during the continuing resolutions to continue the funding of the government, we've always been willing to go ahead and take Senate measures and look at how do we, either improve the bill or how do we go ahead and say, hey, you know what, we understand these edits and get it passed and pushed through.
There will be many people now very interested to see the names that are brought up when these files are released. Do you think Donald Trump himself might be named there? Do you think he's confident that he has nothing to hide from these documents being released?
Well, first off, the president's very confident, as are all of us, that there's nothing to hide. I mean, in the last election, if the Democrats who controlled the Senate and the presidency had anything on President Trump, that would have been leaked and came forward immediately during the campaign trail. Secondarily, as we know, Jeffrey Epstein was not a big fan of Donald Trump. He actually ridicules him in many of the emails. And so I think that what you note really quickly is that this isn't a concern or a fear that President Trump was in some way going to be complicit or going to have somehow be pulled into it. He's always been for the ideas of getting justice for the victims. What he wanted to do is just look at what committee or what department could best handle this under their jurisdiction.
What do you make of the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene did say that the saga over this has fractured MAGA and has fractured the MAGA base that has in the past been very supportive of Donald Trump? Is that something that you agree with?
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I have respect for my colleague, and I know that she really did want to push for this as far as transparency, and so did the president, so did others. I think that sometimes people just get into a vehement agreement on something, and they violently agree on the same exact principles. It's just maybe a way of going about it. But I think that anytime that you want to offer your criticism, you're elected by your constituents, so you answer your constituents before all things. But I think that we have to be cognizant of the fact that as a party and as a nation, we need to be thinking about what is the best and most sound approach, whether it's economy, securing our border, going after counter-narco-terrorism, whatever the case may be, or building our alliances and our partners abroad to be able to support them in further operations through the Five Eye partnerships or bilateral trilateral agreements. There's a lot of ways, and everyone in Congress, they all think they have the best way of handling things. And in some cases, they're right. In other cases, they're not. They've
traded rather harsh words, haven't they, between the two of them, Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I mean, you'd probably have to talk to Marjorie and to the president. I'm not, inside of their actual conversations that they may be having separately. And so I think that, whatever the problem is between the two of them, the one thing I'll say is that we need to be unified as a party to fight for the American people. And that's really what matters to me, is strengthening our economy, securing our borders, protecting our children, getting transparency, and essentially being able to lead this, this nation to be the world leader that it has been for so long.
Can I just ask you one thing, whether there might be some consideration of fears about national security risk of all of these documents being released? Is that something that might concern you, or have you heard anyone discussing that concern?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to look through all of these documents myself into the SCIF. I actually sit on the House Armed Services Committee and the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And so my committees of jurisdiction mostly include things like oversight and intelligence, Western Hemisphere, and our United States military and armed services. So once I look through it, I'll look at whether or not there's any type of a national security risk or jeopardy or threat, whether there was things that were compromised as a result of potential leaders that was involved in this. So this is transparency for everyone. So it allows us to be able to further look at whether or not the Oversight Committee or the Judiciary Committee need to look at this for criminal referral.
Well, yes, indeed. That was one question I wanted to ask you. Do you think that now the Oversight Committee will be allowed to continue its work and release evidence when appropriate? Because it's conducting its own investigation, isn't it, into the late paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, absolutely. And you got to keep in mind that the release of the actual documents is just providing the transparency. What the Oversight Committee has, though, is subpoena jurisdiction, where they can actually subpoena people to come in to actually testify before Congress. And that in itself is what the real power and the real tool is, because there's so much that's not covered in these emails that can only be done through firsthand accounts and through testimony. And that's what the Oversight Committee has the advantage on.
So just finally, when do you think we all will be able to see what's in the Epstein files? Do you have a date in mind?
Well, that's all going to depend on how rapidly it goes to the Senate and gets to the president's desk. So unfortunately, I don't have that crystal ball, but I would imagine that's going to happen very quickly and very soon.
I mean, months, weeks?
This is the House of Representatives. Some things take hours, days, weeks, months. Some people shut down the government for 42 days. So anything can happen in the House of Representatives. But the one thing that we're committed to is the actual due process and the legislative procedures in which the parliamentarians set forth.
Cory Mills, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. I know it's very busy for you there, but Cory Mills, Republican congressman, plenty to get your teeth into. Thank you very much for talking to us.